Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdist Dave, and today I'm joined by Adam Bradford. It's always a pleasure to have you on, sir. You may have been on the most so far, or pretty close to it.
Well, I feel very honored about that, Dave.
Well, you started this whole thing off, whether you know it or not. It's your
Oh,
fault.
I didn't know that actually.
Well, yeah, our very first live chat was like, there was this like company that came out of nowhere, and we're like, is it part of Dungeons and Dragons? Is it not part of Dungeons and Dragons? And they were launching this thing, so I had just gone full time, and my other partners had fairly flexible schedules, and we're like, do we want to talk about this and just do a live stream? And that
Well,
was
that's
like
great.
that was kind of early for the live streaming on YouTube at the time.
Yeah.
And you were actually in the chat, I believe, like fielding questions
Oh,
and
yeah.
weighing in.
I remember that. I didn't know that was the first thing.
It
That's
was like
great.
we had done a video. I think we had done a video on it afterwards, and you had like jumped in the comments and asked some questions. You were like super proactive in the community
Yeah, I
from the very
show up in
beginning.
comments all over the place. So, yeah. Try to keep my finger on the pulse.
So, but you guys have really expanded out, and now you're doing your own RPG, Cortex.
Yeah.
And I just watched the interview between you, with you and Cam, or discussion, I should say, about the Masters of the Universe game that's coming out.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I don't know if you can see back here, but I'm quite the Masters of the Universe
So, you've got the
fan. Yeah, just a huge fan. When I was 3 years old, can you hear me?
I can't
Beep
hear
boop,
you.
beep
You
boop.
you kind of
Okay,
like
can you
going
hear me
in and
now?
yeah. You were going in and out, and then it was like you're frozen, but then the audio was there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Quarantine internet issues. I have the best juice I can possibly get in the house, but maybe sometimes it doesn't always keep up with the video games out there. But
Yeah.
no, I've been a huge Masters of the Universe fan for many years. When I was three, that was Christmas for me, opening Castle Grayskull. And it really has, like, I guess it's probably my most lengthy fandom in my entire life because I've kept up with it all these years. I read all the comics. I, love She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I actually saw in the theater, so it's like really special to me, and we cannot wait to make this game with Cortex. It's going to be great. We're already like internally playtesting it, and it's already a lot of fun. And so yeah, we're looking forward to getting that out to fans.
Yeah, so we're getting ready to start a new game, and I was really close to being like, all right, let's run this with Cortex. I don't feel comfortable with the system quite yet, and none of my players really know the system yet. But I was really close. We're going to do like a Thundar the Barbarian meets Flash Gordon
Nice.
style
Yeah.
game, and I was like, Cortex would be really good for this.
Yeah, it's really good for any kind of pulpy or super heroic type of play because the thing that people are constantly, so I even from a fifth edition perspective with Dungeons and Dragons recently put together a build for Captain America because it's just a private game that I'm going to be playing with some other folks, and everybody is playing fifth edition, but playing some kind of Marvel superhero character. And so I put it together for Cap, and I did pretty well with it, I think, but at the end of the day, like fifth edition's not intended for that kind of content. And the thing that people talk about all the time is, well, the Hulk is so much stronger than Cap. He should have he should have this 30 strength versus Cap with his 18 or whatever. And at the end of the day, that makes a lot of sense per Dungeons and Dragons rules because
Yeah,
they have guidelines for how much you can lift and carry and all of that stuff. But when you really look at the fiction behind those characters, How many times has, on paper, the Hulk would destroy Captain America every single time, but how many times does that actually happen in the comics or the films or anything else? You see that a lot of the time Cap comes out on top of that altercation, and so Cortex supports the narrative and the fiction in a way that Dungeons and Dragons, and again, this isn't any kind of knock on D&D. I love D&D. D&D is its own ecosystem, hit points, armor class, all of these things. It is a game, and it started out as a game, and it remains, this incredible game that we can enjoy. But if you're really trying to capture the flavor and feel of some of these other type.
No, the internet gods are fickle today. I don't know if we've got a full
So
drop.
fiction.
Oh,
This is where Cortex really, really shines and comes together. I'm here. All right. I'm going to send a message real quick just to make sure that nobody's doing anything crazy at my house. So hopefully it'll hold up.
Yeah, all of the kids are streaming their video games right now.
Yeah, that might be it. Let's see. All right. You can go ahead though, Dave. I'll be listening.
All right, so anyone, if you have questions, feel free to just type question in the chat and then drop it in there, and we'll try and get to them. So Doug will be upset with me if I don't ask you about Galaxy Quest. Will there be a Galaxy Quest Cortex game? He's like, there's a documentary from Fandom
Yeah.
about Galaxy Quest.
So I can neither confirm nor deny. No, that kind of response makes it feel like we're actually doing something. So we don't have any current plans for that. But what I will say is, with Cortex, we do plan to have a variety of licensed properties, and so yeah, we'll. If the opportunity presents itself to do something like Galaxy Quest, that would be a very fun game. So we'll see how it goes.
When you guys got the Masters of the Universe license, Doug went on this crazy deep dive. I'm pretty sure there's a corkboard and string involved, and it's like, Masters of the Universe is owned by Mattel. They own all these other properties. They're bitter rivals of Hasbro, and
oh yeah. So the conspiracy theories, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's Mattel. It was really funny as we first started talking with Mattel. They have been great. Everyone over there has been incredible to work with already. We've got some other exciting things. Hate to be this super tease, but we've got something that we're also trying to work on with them that all fans are going to love, whether you like TRPGs or not. So yeah, I think that we're going to be working with Mattel very closely, and as I was looking at their property list, so that's kind of how this came up first is, hey, we would like to work with you, and they send us the property list, and I got a question from our president at the time, and he was just asking, hey, Mattel, like, we're going to be talking with them, what do you want to do? And I said, hands down, I want to do Masters of the Universe. I'm a huge fan. Like, I want to do that one really badly. And I said at that time, I said, but I'm not sure if that is completely alive, at this point in time, because the franchise has really kind of gone into a sleep mode. But then after we started having those conversations, and I learned everything that Motu is what the cool kids call it, by the way, that Motu has in store for it. It's got 2 new animated series that are coming out. There's a live action film in development with Netflix. And there's a new toy line. So I have the entire new toy line behind me here that's been released so far, and everything that Mattel is doing with that franchise really is just very smart. The people who are running Masters of the Universe now get the property, they get what the fans want to see, and the role-playing game that we're creating is a big part of their plan to just expand the franchise and ultimately to wake up the sleeping giant. It's going to be this huge reawakening of this beloved franchise, and so yeah, I'm there for it. I'm very excited to see what happens, and I think fans are going to be really pleased.
So I think we kind of touched on this a little bit the last time I talked to you, but like going into these different licensing agreements, I feel like RPGs a lot of times will get a hold of them, but then they're not allowed to do a lot of things with them as far as promoting and really reaching out and tapping into the audience that's a fan of that property, not just role players. You know, so internally, whether you or your team had that discussion, well, like, are we going to just kill deals that just don't work to making this a successful project? It's not enough to just get the IP.
Yeah, I think that that's always a consideration, especially as we're just coming out of the gate, right? We need some success early, and I think that a lot of our discussions so far with what we've chosen as the first couple that we've publicly announced at this point, I think that we're in a really, really good spot because we announced Tales of Zadia, which is based on the Dragon Prince, and I don't know if you've seen that show, but that's one of those that I watch with my kids as soon as it drops on Netflix.
I have
And
ninja running elves. What more do you
yeah,
need?
yeah, absolutely. Arms, back, anime style. Yeah, that's it. And so I think that what's going on with the Dragon Prince after we announced that, and kind of as part of the public announcement for that, it was really incredible to see that Netflix, in an unprecedented way, renewed it for 4 additional seasons. Netflix has never done that for any other show. And so it's going to get a fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh season of that show. So that is great news for the RPG because, we've got several years here of really great content. And then on top of that, this year, this show really is something special. And coming out of the gate with something that strong is going to be a really, really great thing for Cortex, but it's also a huge thing for the Dragon Prince fans. And I think that what I'm most excited about there is we get the ability to get into canon with the show. And so the show's ended a third season. The organized play program, the annual storylines that will be coming out for Tales of Zadia is going to be situated in that gap between the end of season 3 and the beginning of season 4. So it's transmedia in a way that these kinds of games have really never been able to do before. And that is a really, really exciting thing for me that fans will, and again, if all you do is watch the show and you're that fan out there, you're going to get caught up when season 4 starts, and it's not going to be anything that you're going to necessarily miss out on. But if you are a player and you're a fan of the Dragon Prince, you're going to get something really special and be able to experience that in that gap. So that one is shaping up very, very nicely for us. And then again, as I said, with Motu and the way that Masters of the Universe is about to really start waking up that sleeping giant. We are situated for success. And then I think that the biggest thing that we have going on the Cortex side that, a lot of games in today's world have a lot of trouble coming out and making an impact because I continually hear the complaint that I can't get my group to play anything other than Dungeons and Dragons because digital tools don't exist for those other games. Like I've recently played something that wasn't D&D and I had to do a paper character sheet, and I have to admit, now I know I'm the D&D Beyond guy, but still it was like just such an arduous task, and I forgot how rough that actually was a little bit. And so I was using paper, and I'm like, what is this thing? And so a lot of groups have that barrier in place, but with Cortex it's going to be as easy, if not easier, because the rule system is in a lot of ways simpler than what's going on with D&D. And so people will be able to use that digital support. And the idea is, as we build out more and more games for Cortex and we have more than those initial 2 that we're starting with, you would be able to switch between those games and understand the core framework that is Cortex, and you won't have to relearn a rules system every time you want to play another kind of game.
Yeah, I started reading the Cortex, and the thing that I like about it is the fact is, it can be as simple as you want or as complex as you want, and that's one of the things that stopped me from using it. Because if I was going to use it, I want to turn all the dials and play with the toggles, right?
Yeah.
So, so there's a lot more to throw in there. But that's what I like about it. TJ had asked if there's going to be digital support. Clearly, there's going to be. I suspect it's going to be easier because you guys are kind of building everything from the ground up.
Yeah, yeah. So we've had the privilege of hindsight in everything that we've done with D&D Beyond, and don't get me wrong, D&D Beyond is still. We have a lot of developers working on D&D Beyond. We have incredibly exciting things in store for what's going on for DDB. But as we're starting Cortex, we're able to say, "Hey, this worked for DDB. This didn't work." So we have that benefit, and so yeah, the digital support is going to be very slick. I'm very excited about everything that I'm seeing in all of the design passes and the early development that we have going on for Cortex. And again, I think that where a lot of independent games at this point are going to struggle because they don't have the ability to have that digital support piece that people are just so used to with D&D out there at this point. I think that it really is going to make a huge difference to be able to say to someone, "Hey, we're going to play this pirate game that I just came up with in Cortex this next weekend." And because that's something you can do in Cortex, you can come up with your own games. You can use mix and match elements of different kinds of traits for those characters to come together, and being able to send a link to a player and just say, "Create your character here," and that be this super simple process that someone can finish in less than 15 minutes, and then they're ready to go and ready to play. That is going to be a huge thing that's I think is going to drive a lot of adoption with what we have going on. And that's the thing too, if these first intellectual properties are not your cup of tea, whether it's the Dragon Prince or Masters of the Universe, there will be other Cortex games, a lot of exciting things that I can't talk about at this point, but there really will be so many different things that you can cover. In addition to that, we're going to have a huge community creator program where people in the community are going to be able to put together their own games, still retain ownership of the IP that you're creating, and all of that is going to provide even more content for people to play on the platform. So yeah, it's a pretty grand vision, and we're really excited to start providing that. And again, for D&D, D&D is going to be like we're under no illusions that D&D is going to be the game out there in the world. It's been around for 45 years. It's again, personally, it's my favorite game I've ever played. And I think that there is room for Dungeons and Dragons and other types of gaming experiences. And I think what a lot of the problem has been, just like with a video game, it's like I played Breath of the Wild. Over when quarantine started, I started playing Breath of the Wild because I had finally had some time to do it. It's an incredible game, possibly the best game I've ever played. And it's really, really hard for me to play other games. I booted up Marvel Avengers this weekend, and I was very disappointed. But it's ultimately, that kind of thing is like the reason that I wouldn't want to play other games is because they're not to the level of quality that something like Breath of the Wild was. I think that, part of the problems is we have such nice things with D&D now. Maybe some of these other experiences need those nice things too. And we're just trying to supply nice things for other types of gaming experiences. And I think that it's really going to resonate with fans.
So I have been talking to a lot of different like third party creators over the years, and we're in this renaissance for Dungeons and Dragons. But they're all saying, well, it only seems to be affecting Dungeons and Dragons. We're not seeing it in other games. You know, what is the Cortex team's thought on that and going into it, and what are you going to do to get that penetration?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to come down to how good that creator experience can be, right? And I do mean that from a tools perspective. So again, the easier something is to create for, the more that creation's going to happen. So Fandom runs the world's largest wiki platform, and we are very well versed in creator experience. You know, editors of wikis contribute so much incredibly compelling content on the Fandom platform, and so we've learned so much over the years. And by the way, that's not perfect, but we're actively always trying to improve that experience on the wiki side of our company. And I think that for Cortex, we've got to provide and hand creators the keys to the kingdom to be able to make that creation process simpler. And so we're going to provide aids. The game system and the rules themselves already lend itself to creation, because we like in Cortex, if you buy the Cortex Prime game handbook, which is going to be available here, it's the hardcover's at printers right now. We've got to see how shipping happens, because our world is really in shambles when it comes to shipping right now. But
You're not
but it's
telling me anything new.
exactly, yeah. So we've got the book at the printer right now, and so as people start to get their hands on the Cortex Prime game handbook, they're going to see that the book is less like, it has some sample games in it, but it is far more a box of Legos that you can then go and build into sets, and those sets can be whatever you want them to be. And I can't wait to see the creativity that the community has. So again, giving the keys to the kingdom from a rules perspective is a big part of it, but then the other part is that digital support side, that it's if we can get enough platform adoption, if people want to play Cortex games, then that is a better thing for creators. A lot of the reason that you can't create outside of Dungeons and Dragons right now is because you're just not going to have an audience that's going to really latch on to what it is that you're making. And so we're trying to provide this avenue for creators to have an audience. Fandom is very creative, creator driven in the first place, so we will spotlight this stuff. We'll get eyeballs on what creators are making out there, so that's another really big part of this. And then finally, we're not ready to share all the financial information yet, but we don't want this to mean peanuts for the people who are creating out there. We want creators to be able to generate income from what they're creating in this space. And I think that there is an issue right now across the entire TRPG industry where getting paid for the things that you make, it's not where it needs to be. And I'm not saying that we'll be able to address that overnight, but it is something that we are very committed toward making real change in the industry and making things better for fans and for creators out there.
It's definitely something we've talked about on the in these live chats often. The RPG niche is a really tough one to make a live in, and and there's a lot there's tons of like baggage that comes with that, reasons why that is. But yeah, there are companies like D&D Beyond and Fandom, Matt Colville, who are raising the bar. I mean, even we try and do better, than what's out there. We try and pay a lot of times at least what the top tier guys are paying. Not Matt Colville though, because that's insane. But because he's very, very generous, from what I've
Yeah.
heard from writers. And we're a tiny company, so. But it does.
Yeah,
feel
it's definitely a rates and everything else out there are always something that companies are going to be predisposed to get what they can get for as little as they can provide. And there's always that tension between running a business and then really doing what is good for the customers. And I think that let's be honest. I mean, those of us who are part of companies and part of businesses, yeah, like, I'm not going to make any illusions about it. If D&D Beyond was not doing as well as it's doing, if we were not operating as a business, and financially things were not coming together, number one, we wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff for fans. But I think you and I were talking just before we started here. The thing that the best companies in the world out there do is they sure acknowledge that the bottom line is the bottom line, but how well does that company also take care of their customers and take care of their community, in this case creators, as well as they possibly can, in pursuit of the financial impact for the business. And that is what we try to do. We're not always going to be perfect at that either, but we do want to make sure that we put the customers first in all of that, because we are pretty convinced that if we do that for our customers, that bottom line part follows. And thankfully, so far, that has proven to be the case, and that is something that we're going to continue to try to be better and better about that for customers, for creators out there. And I think Cortex gives us a great ability to try to be really, really good to those creators, because again, some kind of change has to happen here, and we are very comfortable with trying to be at the forefront, leading and trying to make that change happen. It's not always going to be clean, it's not always going to be executed perfectly, but the way that change happens is you got to keep pushing, keep trying to make it happen, and that's something we're very committed to.
I mean, for us, even as like a smaller company, one of the things that I kind of like geek out on is like how much money we were able to pump back into the community and actually pay people to do things. It helped them kind of like fulfill their nerdy dreams while we're trying to fulfill our own. And that has always been one of the coolest things about doing this, that impacting others. And in anything I've ever done, I've found like the best and the worst part of it is always the people. So so when you can help lift up other people, it's just a really cool thing.
Yeah,
So
that's ultimately why I do all of this. Like, meeting the people in the community, and naturally I can't meet everybody, but everyone that I have been able to meet, interact with, engage with online, wherever, that is the reason that I personally this. We're fans ourselves, and we want to see all the things that the fans are wanting to see, and the community makes all of that worthwhile.
So, in a nutshell, Cortex, for someone who's is not familiar with the system at all, what should they expect?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, Cortex is a trait-based storytelling game that, again, the game handbook, the way that we're going to present the system in the first place, it is the box of Legos. So those Legos can, just like real life Legos, you can take those, and I don't know if you ever go out there and just look at what people make with Legos and some of the submissions that end up becoming sets, but it's just truly mind-boggling. It's kind of the concept of Minecraft. When I go in and my 11-year-old has made some, like literally, I think he made a computer in Minecraft one time, and I was like, "What are you talking about? You made a computer?" And he's like, "No, I made a computer. It works. It's stored." And I'm like, "Whoa!" And so Cortex presents really these.
Did your son do that on a computer?
So he actually did that on the PS4,
Okay.
I think. So yeah, it was a type of computer, I guess. So yeah, I don't ask the questions of why people make the things that they make, but I'm very impressed with what they make. But yeah, I think that ultimately for Cortex, all of those different traits are going to come together to form a character, and we have what are called mods. So if you want to play a game that is pretty close to Dungeons and Dragons in a lot of ways, you can do that through different types of mods, modifications that you employ into the game. So you can use life points, very similar to hit points, if you want damage to be tracked in a way like that. If you want something that is a little more abstract, you can use different types of stress. If you want to use something that are akin to experience points, you can use XP. If you want to have progression that operates a little differently. So for the different aspects of the game, you have these different modifications that you can more or less just swap in and out and create a game that is going to play to the liking of your group and hopefully to capture whatever feel you're going for. So a great example of this is with Tales of Xadia. The characters in the Dragon Prince, there would be a lot of possibilities to try to do something very close to D&D with that. But you know, we don't think that that really captures what's going on with those characters because it has magic, it has dragons, it has a lot, it has spells, it has magic items, it has a lot of the elements that you would see in D&D. But when we're watching that show, we see a complexity to these characters that maybe you're not always going to have when you're kicking down a door and dungeon crawling, you know. And so and again, I'm not saying a D&D game can't have that, but Cortex in this case I think can really capture what's going on in that show, because one of the traits that you have available to you in that game is called values. And so a great example of this, I'll try to be as spoiler light as I possibly can, but if you absolutely just don't want to know anything at all about the show, maybe stop listening for the next 60 seconds. I'll give you a thumbs up on the video when I'm done so you can unmute. But ultimately, there's a scenario at one point where the main character Callum is trying to cast a spell, and he is failing pretty horribly earlier in an episode at casting this spell. And I think there are a lot of ways that you could model this in the Cortex game, saying that he is using traits that have to do with magic, but then one of the values that he's using is maybe mastery there, because he's trying to learn this and he's trying to master the spell. And so you would add that mastery die to your dice pool that you're forming together, and then to see if you succeed at casting that spell as Callum's player, you would roll that and you would see if you succeed. You would take the top two numbers and total those together out of that dice pool, and then it would be challenging some type of difficulty number or possibly an opposing roll from the narrator or the game moderator in this case. And so ultimately, with that, early in the episode, Callum was failing at casting this spell because let's say that his mastery value die trait is a D6. And later on in the episode, a situation occurs where someone that he loves is in danger, going to probably perish. And all of a sudden, when this comes down to it, he is able to successfully cast that spell and saves this character's life. And it could be argued maybe that when he's forming his dice pool as part of that action, that he is using his value of devotion, how much he loves this person is what is motivating him to make that attempt to cast that spell. And let's say his devotion value has a D10 as its die type, and so it gives him a greater chance of success because that's what's motivating him at that point in time. So that's one quick example of how Cortex can pull in some of the softer skills of characters. They're even getting into their motivations. And again, it's a storytelling game. I would say in a lot of ways, D&D can be a storytelling game, but also D&D for a lot of tables is going to be something that is far more tactical and kind of outcome oriented. Whereas Cortex can allow you to really, really focus on what's motivating characters, what is really intrinsic to the setting that you're trying to capture. So that's an example of Cortex play. Spoilers over if you're muting, but yeah, I think that is what Cortex is about. It's a dice pool based game. You're using traits. You're going down through your character sheet, picking the traits that are applicable to the action that you're trying to do, and then you're rolling that and getting an outcome just like in any other TRPG.
It to me it very much feels a lot like Fate or a Cipher System, with different a different set of mechanics, right? And also, it's far more flexible in a lot of ways. But in that idea that you can put together a couple sentences that describes your character, and have like 3 traits, and that would be it. Like you wouldn't need anything else. On the really simplistic side of things, all the way up to adding a bunch of modifications to it and making a much more complex game. And that aspect is what I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, you can be as complex or as, yeah. Oh, can you hear me? Or did the internet do its thing?
Nope, I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. All right. So ultimately, I think that Cortex used to cover Firefly Serenity. That's where it gets its name Cortex from, because of the internet, the Cortex, and the Firefly universe. And so it debuted with the Serenity role-playing game. It powered the Battlestar Galactica game, the Leverage. So I don't know if you ever watched that show, but it powered that Supernatural, Smallville. So and then of course the most recent version of Marvel RPG, it powered that as well. And I think that it's just such a diverse set of games and different kinds of settings that it has captured in the past. And I think that again, it would not surprise me at some point if we ended up seeing, and again, don't take this as confirmation that this is happening or anything, but it wouldn't surprise me if we saw, an RPG based on The Office, or Parks and Rec, that is powered by Cortex, because it can capture, in addition to anything that is very combat focused or anything else, it can capture soap operatic or dramatic or comedic content, in addition to those other things that are more combat driven. One of the messages again. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
You robo voiced and slowed down a little bit, but did not actually stop. One of the things I found about the system was it's far more complex to explain it than understand it.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the best things about the age that we live in now, is we're going to have digital support, but we're also going to have streaming, and we're going to have video support, teaching people how to play. And so I foresee that, if you're browsing this online in the sidebar, there's likely going to be a quick 30-second to 60-second video that's going to tell you everything that you want to know about effect dice. And that is going to go so far towards showing people a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000, and so it's like that kind of content is going to be there to help as part of this. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not using that as a crutch to write bad rules written content, but the truth is, using the baseball example that Mr. Merles has always used, that it's like, hey, you've got a baseball rule book. If you've ever actually seen a baseball rule book, there is no way that you could read what is in that rule book and play baseball. Like, there is just no way that would happen. You would do something maybe close, but there's no way it would play like the actual game does. And I think that the way that you teach somebody to play baseball is you take them to a game and let them watch. You let them watch it on television. And so I think that we live in a time now where that is going to be so important. As soon as you see Cortex at play, it's going to be very easy. As soon as you create a character and you have a digital character sheet in front of you that lets you just simply go down, and your narrator or game master is saying, hey, build your dice pool. How do I do that? Go down your sheet and click the different categories that apply to this role. All of that is going to make a ton of sense very intuitively right away as people start to play. So yeah, a little harder to explain with just words, but seeing it in action, it really is a very simple and straightforward system that is highly flexible.
That makes a lot of sense for me. When I learn new games, rarely do I want to just read the rule book and learn it. I want someone to just play the game with me and teach me as we go, because I just learn faster that way. And I'll absorb the information. I can read the whole book. I'll show up to the table and I'll have forgotten everything that's important about the game. Having all these other assets are super important. Also, people should know that you guys plan on doing, you have all the digital tool sets for it, but it'll actually be a physical product, paper and pen game that you can pick up and buy, and you don't have to use those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a sample game out there right now that people can check out. It's called Hammerheads. So this is something that our lead designer Cam Banks. This is a setting that he came up with. That if you buy the Cortex Prime game handbook, it's going to be one of the sample settings inside that book. It's based on that old show Thunderbirds, and I really, really love this setting because the idea is you are this international team of disaster and crisis response. And so basically, the whole idea is the world, it's near future. The world is in bad shape from an environmental perspective, and you've got wildfires, you've got earthquakes, you've got natural disasters continually. And these hammerhead agents are sent to try to help people in the areas where this is happening. And it's a great example of a different kind of game where you have all kinds of action, but you don't have the violence. And so, again, don't get me wrong, I'm fine with violence in D&D. It's definitely something that I'm not going to shy away from. But it is a nice change of pace to have this ability to be really, really action packed. It's really reminiscent of Armageddon and Deep Impact and some of those old movies that do that sort of thing. And so I think that it's a great example of how Cortex can do something new and fresh and exciting and engage players with that kind of really over the top action without it being violent.
Do you have a particular game you're looking forward to playing with Cortex?
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna play and run a ton of Legends of Grayskull because again, it's just Masters Universe is so near and dear to me that it's going to be a big part of my slate in the coming months, whether it's playtesting or streaming. Once the game is actually out for everybody. But I think that I hate to be a tease, but I'm probably most looking forward to another game that we can't quite talk about yet. But yeah, I think that game is another one of those things that is very action packed, but it's not in the vein of medieval fantasy that you would
It's Hot Wheels, isn't
continually
it?
think about. Yeah, Hot Wheels. Yeah, we're gonna make, and then that's gonna be followed by the Barbie
Yeah.
RPG. So actually, Barbie RPG I think would excite a lot of people out there. So yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Nice. Yeah. So I can't wait to see what comes out with this, and we're gonna start playing around with it, over here at Nerdarchy as well, to see what we can come up with. You're talking about the Motu, and I remember watching the cartoons and growing up, but also there was like I don't know if it was like a 2020 special or a documentary on how like that toy line, that the cartoon was a commercial for the toy line, and like it was the first time that it was kind of approached that way,
Yeah.
and how they kind of revolutionized how cartoons were then being made and marketed to
Yeah.
children.
And I did, like, I very seamlessly went from Masters of the Universe. Skeletor and He-Man were my first action figures that I ever owned, and to be honest, I can't remember whether I opened Skeletor or He-Man first. I probably opened Skeletor first because he became my favorite. But yeah, I was such a huge fan of action figures from 3 years old onward. Still to this day, I literally bought action figures yesterday, and so went into GI Joe, and so from there went into GI Joe, and that cartoon was absolutely a commercial to get people to go and buy those toys. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was a fascinating phenomenon that kicked off, and I think that everything has come very full circle, and that's where I'm very excited about Motu. But GI Joe has started a new line of action figures, so a lot of those collectors that started when they were 3 years old have grown up and have the financial resources to continue to collect, And so I think that companies, Mattel and Hasbro and everyone who's playing the game out there, they are starting to realize that we all still like those things that we had back then. And then you've got content like the cartoons, Masters of the Universe Revelation, that is, the showrunner is Kevin Smith. I am just tremendously excited about this show and cannot wait. The voice cast is stellar. Mark Hamill is going to be taking a turn as Skeletor. So yeah, it is incredible. It's an incredible time to be a toy fan, to be a fan of these beloved properties, because naturally everybody is wanting to reboot and jumpstart all of these properties. But thankfully, so many of the people who were fans when they were children have grown up and are now in positions to actually be the people making these things. And so I think that that ends up really coming out in the quality level. And I'm just tremendously excited to see what happens with, and again, I have no insider information on Thundercats or anything else, but it would not surprise me if those things really, really start to hit within the next, 5 years or so.
Those G.I. Joe commercials for the toys were like some of the first to like tell stories through the kids' perspective with those toys. Like I can kind of remember them. And
I remember like Sears Wish Book content, right? Like, so you go look in the catalog and they had like a scene and you could like tell what was happening in the scene, and I wanted every bit of it. And of course, I never did back then get every bit of it, but I've corrected that now as an adult. I've gone back and found most of it.
So does the Motu license include She-Ra as well? Is that the same?
So with the license, the approach that we will be taking is Mattel owns all of the characters themselves. There are some, we won't say difficulties, but we'll say licensing hurdles with various specific expressions of some of these characters. And so what we are going to be doing, and this is probably an approach we would take regardless of what's going on with licensing, is we will be presenting evergreen versions of these characters, because there have been many different He-Mans out there, many different She-Ras, and all of these other characters have had many different expressions, whether it's the Dolph Lundgren movie, whether it is, what happened in the original mini comics that were packaged with the toys, or the Filmation shows that came out, or more recent things like Princesses of Power. So we are going to take, we have all those characters available to us and we intend to use them, but we will take very evergreen stances on these characters and present them. So the book will have original artwork. So that's really exciting that we're going to get to present again these evergreen versions with new original art that is very, reminiscent of some classic role-playing games out there. So really looking forward to that part. But then we do intend to have specific products in the Legends line that will focus on specific expressions. So it would not surprise me to see something that is based on the upcoming Revelation at some point. Again, that's just kind of common sense out there. I'm not divulging any secret information, but it's like those kinds of products will focus very specifically on the iterations and the expressions. I can tell you that our team loves Princesses of Power, and the ideas and concepts that puts out there will be at the core of a lot of what we do. But we will, through our original storyline content and through our organized play program, we will be putting our own canon together. So if anybody's like a super fan out there and you happen to own the 500-page tome that is the character guide and compendium, you'll know that in the entry for He-Man, it's going to talk about the 1982 Motu mini comics. It's going to talk about the Filmation, write-up of He-Man. It's going to continue to go down through German audio plays and all kinds of other expressions of these characters. When they write a new version of that book in 5 to 10 years, there will be a new entry for Legends of Grayskull canon. And that allows us to have a sandbox that is part of this multiverse that they've very recently introduced in the comics for what's going on with Masters of the Universe. And that multiverse will have this new expression where we can allow game masters to surprise players out there. So we've got this kind of open tabula rasa part that players won't always know what's coming next, and that's what will happen in our canon and what's going on with Legends. Now, everybody at the table, if they want to play Princesses of Power or something that is closer to Filmation that has a moral at the end of every session, or whatever else, they can absolutely do that, and the game itself will support all of those different expressions.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what they do with the next He-Man. So I gave the Princess of Power a couple seasons, and it just wasn't my cup of tea. I don't really care for that animation style.
Yeah.
I actually like the old school ones better. They also got me with Teen Titans with that as well. But I also acknowledge, you know what? Sometimes it's just not for me. It's for somebody else.
Absolutely. I think the variety is overall a great thing for any fandom out there, and always great to see that.
I know you guys, and anyone that hasn't watched, Adam and Cam got into a great discussion about Motu and what to expect. You should definitely check that out. I'll have to grab that link and throw that in the description too, so people can find that. But it's over on the Fandom RPG channel.
Fandom Tabletop channel. Yeah, Fandom Tabletop, which is a new channel that we've started. So Fandom Tabletop is the overall imprint that houses D&D Beyond, houses everything that we're doing with Cortex and any other tabletop related anything that we do in the future. So yeah, Fandom Tabletop, and that was the recent PowerCon panel. That is the biggest Masters of the Universe He-Man She-Ra convention in the world. They had to go virtual this year, like most conventions have, and so yeah, that was a PowerCon panel, and you should be able to find that on that channel.
Yeah, it's like a 40-minute you guys chatting about what's going on with it. And I found it extremely interesting. I watched He-Man as a kid and had all the toys and had Castle Grayskull, that would open up. And
yeah, it was the best.
Yeah, I totally trashed those toys and so bad. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's cool to see that you guys are getting these properties and getting them out there. And even like in the chat earlier, someone mentioned like I was trying to figure out how to do that in 5e. Run a He-Man game, and we get that question so many times. It's like, how do you run this?
And I get it. Like again, I just very recently did a build of Captain America in 5th edition, and so I get the appeal of that. I get why people want to do that. You're very familiar with the system, with rules. You want to try to push the boundaries of those rules the most that you can, and sometimes it's hard to get somebody to play something else. And so I want to play a superhero game right now, then everybody else is trying to do something with 5th edition. I think with Cortex, we really are just trying to provide an alternative that makes a lot of sense for people trying to really capture those settings in a more native way, and that's what we're really trying to do there.
And the system itself looks like it's going to be fairly simple for people to learn. So you don't have the barrier to entry. There are games that are much more complex than
right.
5e out there, but there's also a lot of games that are a lot simpler and easier to learn and grasp right away. So so this is going to be a nice jumping on spot for people to get into it. And the nice thing is that you've got enough support out there that you're going to be able to get that message out there, and people are going to be able to find this stuff to check out, which is awesome, because a lot of these games that are being created, they're amazing games, but no one gets to see them. Because they just don't have the reach.
Yeah, getting the word out about any kind of game is a huge thing. And of course, Fandom runs the largest network in entertainment. So we are very confident that we will be able to get the word out about what's going on with these games, And again, we think we will present a very viable experience for a lot of fans of different kinds of genres and different kinds of franchises out there. And we're really excited to get that started. And with the digital support of that, you're talking about how easy it is to pick up. Adding the digital support in there is a huge part of that ease. It's going to be very, very simple. All of the panelists that were on PowerCon, so Felicia Day, Phil Lamar, he's a legend. That was awesome to get to play with him, and then Tiffany Smith. So them participating with us in that Masters of the Universe PowerCon panel, they were handed those characters. All of that came together like a lot of things do very quickly. They were handed those characters and they knew what to do just instantly because they were using prototypes of our digital support and digital character sheets for those characters, and it was a very, very easy thing for them to pick it up.
Do you guys? I imagine to some degree. I don't know if you talk about it. Do you have the rollout schedule? Like this is when the Prime Core book is coming out. This is Motu. This is the next project.
Yeah. So basically, what we can say at this point is again, the hardcover for the game handbook for Cortex Prime is at printers right now. We've got a target from the printer end of September. And so hopefully the print job will be completed by then. And then we will start sending it out to Kickstarter backers. Again, we're a little iffy on shipping times at this point. So hopefully, as quickly as possible, but it'll start going out to backers. It will start hitting shelves, hopefully at some point in October. And then we will also have the digital side of this where you can pick up a PDF and all of the compendium access with full cross-linking and tooltips and everything else that you have seen on D&D Beyond is going to be available for Cortex, hopefully within that range as well. And then as far as Tales of Zadia and Legends of Grayskull go, they are absolutely the best I can do here is slated for a 2021 release. And we will have a public playtesting period where people can get their hands on the game and start playing and trying the game ahead of that. So, if those games are really going to come out in 2021, which they are, then I think it follows that public playtesting, has to come at some point, ahead of that. So, again, we can't get into specific dates yet, not quite ready to share that, but hopefully that gives folks an idea.
That and that's pretty ambitious. 2 of them in 1 year. So how far out do you guys?
Well, that's also that. Well, yeah. What I was going to say is that's kind of assuming that we haven't been developing them for some time, and maybe we have. So yeah, that's it.
So Rocco wants to
Can
know.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You froze, but your audio's coming through. Rocco wants to know why did Skeletor hate He-Man so much?
Well, that's something that maybe the cartoons did not get into too much, but that is something that we can absolutely explore very closely within the scope of a role-playing game. So yeah, we'll see. And in your world, you can make up his motivations. So that's the great thing about a role-playing game.
Maybe they don't hate each other in your world.
Maybe they love each other. Yeah, that's it.
Power couple. So, do you guys already have plans for 2022?
We do, but not quite ready to talk about them.
I know I wasn't going to ask what, but so how far out have you guys kind of got games planned? Because every time you do one of these, it's basically like making a game.
Yeah, it is. And it does help us the way that the digital support is being made, in addition to the way that just Cortex works and how flexible it is. The development cycle on one of these games probably isn't as much as a lot of people are used to in the TRPG space. Not, trying to, sell it too short there, but it is something that again, the flexibility of the system really helps us, kind of move forward with a game pretty quickly. But the other part of that is I live in the future. So my entire job, like it has been on D&D Beyond since the beginning, is I'm that person that's constantly thinking a year down the road, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. And so we have put and I have personally put a great deal of thought into what things look like a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And so, yeah, we have a vision. It's a very clear vision for what we're wanting to accomplish. We have a plan, and we're marching down that plan. Now, things don't always go according to plan, but we are absolutely thinking and confident that Cortex is going to be a big platform that millions of people are going to embrace over time, and we're going to see a variety of very fun, enjoyable franchises and experiences come to that platform.
Are there any plans internally to do something new where it's not maybe not an IP?
Yeah. We so Hammerheads, I think, is a great example of some of the types of experiences we would like to do. We would love to do new kinds of things that cover gaps. So again, the real story for Hammerheads for me is, here is a way that you can have a very action-packed game without that game being overly violent. And so we will do things like that for sure. And we've already got a few things cooking internally that, again, not quite ready to talk about, but we will have original settings come. And then as we see creators start to do things, that is another part of this. The Eberron, the setting search that Wizards did that ended and resulted in Eberron. I think that there's no reason at all that we can't do that for Cortex. And so if somebody comes up, creator comes up with something very compelling out there, it's the kind of thing that we would want to highlight and possibly work with and partner with that person to give that more of a spotlight than maybe it ordinarily would get.
Nice. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. I'm excited for it. What
Yeah.
genres you go into. We're just past the hour mark. I know you're super busy, so I won't keep you any longer. Thanks for coming on. Any final words before we head on out?
That's it. I appreciate you having me. Thanks for everyone out there for the questions and everything else. And if you have any other questions I didn't get to, you can hit me at Bad Eye Adam on Twitter, and you can find me anywhere that D&D Beyond stuff is happening. And there will be a lot of new Cortex stuff happening very soon. So thanks, Dave.
Thank you. And as always, in the description and later on in the pin post, you can find links to the things we've talked about. And so until next time, stay nerdy.